this is easily the hardest video in the series to explain. Of all the videos too, this is probably the most important video and the most boring all at the same time. It's like listening to a lecture on the meaning of life from Stephen Hawking. Now look, game mechanics describe virtually every aspect of how a video game operates, from how you move, to how you shoot, to how the controls work, to the buttons you use or the keys for PC gamers. It's fucking everything. But I don't have time to discuss everything because I'd be here for weeks. So I'll just touch on the things that need to be fixed and that need to be added and removed and shit like that. Now I can't sit here and list every single item, but I can discuss some of the major minor gameplay changes that are needed. Now over the course of the past umpteen fucking videos, I mentioned things that affect game mechanics, such as perks like marking explosives, the bipods and LMGs, the gimping of quickscoping. Plenty of shit that has to do with game mechanics has already been discussed without the need for its own video. So this is just going to address the items that I have not yet discussed. And this installment of the series will focus strictly on gun mechanics and anything that affects how people shoot. Subsequent videos are going to go into details of other game mechanics like knifing, explosives, and shit like that. But this is strictly for guns. And we'll start right at the top of my list. The game needs more recoil and gun sway. Look, the undeniable reality is you can't hold down the trigger to an ACR and not expect an ounce of recoil. Obviously, changes have been made since Modern Warfare 2's awful no recoil system. But even now, there needs to be some tweaks to the recoil. In particular, hip firing. When you hip fire a gun, the game spreads the bullets out as it should, since accuracy should be moderately reduced. But what it never added was a recoil factor on anything other than a shotgun or sniper rifle. But SMGs, assault rifles, and LMGs are all powerful weapons as well, and they need some form of kick, even if you're just spraying, praying from the hip. If you're holding down the trigger button of a SCAR while you're running around and not being stabilized, yes, you will experience severe recoil if you empty out that entire clip without stopping. That needs to be adjusted in the game. Now, I'm not talking major recoil for hip firing, but your gun should not finish in the same exact position it started in. All I'm talking about is just a slight bit of upkick. Gun sway is another issue, and I want a major uptick in gun sway. When you raise your gun, you're not going to be 100% steady unless you have the aforementioned bipod. Call of Duty 4, Black Ops 1 actually had some excellent gun sway mechanics, and I would like to use that again, but the one difference I would add is the longer you maintain aiming down sight, the more gun sway you will experience. Right now, a kid could sit in a corner, aim at a doorway, waiting for someone to come through that motherfucker, and the gun sway will stay the same regardless of how long he sits there. Fuck all that shit. I want increased gun sway the longer you aim down sight. The more you sit in one fucking spot, the more the game will penalize your ass for laziness. Gun sway will increase. Gun sway should also increase when the game stops you from a full sprint. You know, when your character gets tired from running, you're huffing and puffing all that shit. No way in hell is your aim going to be absolutely spot on like it was before. Add a very small uptick in gun sway right after a character finishes a sprint. And once he recovers from his sprint, you know, when you're no longer huffing and puffing and shit like that, then the game goes back to normal gun sway. And again, I'm not talking a major change, you know, where the gun is bouncing up and down like a stripper trying to earn her $20. I'm talking about a minor noticeable difference from the normal stance to exhaustion stance after running. Now, the one unfortunate thing that I already know that I gave campers was the bipod on LMGs. As long as it's mounted, the effects of gun sway and recoil will be reduced. I already know that corner camping assholes are going to use the bipods and go prone in a fucking corner. This is something you could just not stop or you can't control when it comes to shitty players. But as I've said in prior videos, there are at least ways of detecting these assholes. They won't be able to hide from a radar as long as they're stationary, similar to how Ghost works now in Black Ops 2. They won't be able to avoid explosives easily, and most importantly, at this point in the game, experienced players have figured out ways how to deal with these motherfuckers. You know what I'm talking about? The only penalty that using the bipod will have is that someone will take a few extra milliseconds to detach that mount. So if they miss your ass with their camping ass shots, you now have the mobility factor working in your favor to kill them. Yes, they will frustrate you. Yes, they will piss you off. But if you played shooters long enough, you know that there are many tactics to get these motherfuckers out of a corner and many ways of killing them. Also in relation to guns, I want weight to have a direct incremental effects on the speed at which you can aim and move. I mentioned this in the sniper video, but there's a difference between a 6-pound gun to a 16-pound gun to a 26-pound gun. I want the weight differences incremental. What I don't want is for each gun type to determine how fast or slow you move. Right now, if you take an LMG, doesn't matter which one, you can move and aim at the same exact pace. It could be a 14-pound LMG, it could be a 28-pound LMG. I want incremental weight to affect the speed so that you can tell what the difference in gun weight is. Lighter guns will allow you to move faster and aim faster. Heavier guns will slow your shit down. Same thing if you decide to carry two heavy-ass guns. Say you want to take the 50 cal and the RPD. We're talking 60 pounds of weight you're carrying. That cumulative total should slow you down a bit. Adding incremental weight to the guns will give players a more realistic movement and speed, and force you into making wise choices when you select your loadouts. If you want more speed, you need to pack light. If you don't care about weight restrictions, load up on the heaviest guns in the game. Now, similar to what I mentioned in the sniping video, I want auto aim assist off for all hip firing. Aiming is one thing. Someone taking the time to bring up their sights and be more accurate should reap the benefits of a toned down auto aim assist, but hip firing should not get the benefit of auto aim assist. Again, these are features that can only be created on a brand new engine. No way in hell that would have been possible in the the engine we've been playing for the past 10 fucking years. But as we all know, Call of Duty's already stated they're basically updating the current engine. That shit is the longest running engine, man. 10 fucking years, and I ain't gonna get into that bullshit, man. Headshot glitching, son of a bitch. How has this not been addressed all these years? There are two ways to address this, but one is just a straight ripoff from Killzone. I ain't gonna lie. Killzone 3 actually added a cover system in a first-person shooter that allows you to stick to a wall and fire over cover like a real-life soldier would. It's effective in the game, and when someone peeks over cover to shoot, more of their body is exposed as opposed to just the head that we see now in Call of Duty. You know, right now in Call of Duty, bullets must be flying out of people's eyeballs or forehead or some shit. I mean, just based on how the headshot glitch works. If you use the cover system, more of your body is actually going to be exposed. Probably just the head and shoulders and shit like that. But the cover system at least gives the other people a fighting chance. The other option is a complete change to the physics and how bullets travel. Right now, if a person's head is all you can see over cover, how the fuck are they shooting you? I mean, we all know it's bullshit how the physics work. Nothing wrong with taking cover and exposing just a little bit of your body as possible. That's the smart way to play. That's an excellent way to limit your exposure to damage taken. But taking advantage of broken physics is a problem. So with a new engine, bullet trajectory should be factored in. When people aim in real life, whether it's a standing position or a squatter position with a rifle, the rifle will come up to about shoulder height or so, and your head is going to dip down a little bit to look through the sight. Now, if you have cover in front of you and you're resting your gun on cover, at the very minimum, you're exposing a little bit more than your eyeballs, like say the top of your head or at least your shoulders. If you aim down sight, the gun will raise to about shoulder height. If your shoulders and upper chest are not above cover and literally just the tip of your head, the gunfire is going to be blocked by that same cover you're standing behind. In other words, to be able to shoot your target, you will at least need to expose enough of your body to get your gunfire off over the cover. Right now, we don't have that. As long as your fucking forehead is above cover, you can get your shots off. So to fix the headshot glitch, as long as your shoulders are above the cover, then you should be able to fire, and bullet trajectory should be taken into account when you actually shoot the weapons. I think that's a fair trade-off. No more bullets coming from eyeballs and ears while headshot glitching. You at least need to offer up a bit of body exposure to be able to fire off your gun in return of the target. It's a pretty simple balance to an exploit of game mechanics. It's not taking away shooting behind cover because, like I said, that's a real-world mechanic that people do use. It's applying real-world physics to the game. Another change that I would at least like to see testing done on this is the ability to determine the exact height of how far you kneel and go prone. You know, right now, we have 3 positions: standing, kneeling, and prone. What I would like to at least see in a testing environment is a sliding scale of how tall you can stand all the way down to going prone. Instead of pressing a button and immediately going into a kneeling position, I would like to see the ability to hold the button, which lowers you incrementally into that position. And my reason and logic for this is that cover in this game, whether it's a box, a wall, a bombed out car, whatever the shit, it's all at different heights. If you give the character the ability to adjust their height to the cover, you effectively create the Killzone 3 type cover system without actually being magnetically stuck to cover. You guys know what I'm talking about. Anybody that's played a third-person shooter knows this. Gears of War, Uncharted, Mass Effect, whatever the fuck. The cover system will sometimes throw you into cover or away from cover in a way that you don't exactly want. Sometimes you want to run away and you get stuck on a wall. Sometimes you want to transition to another wall and you get pushed off from cover, and meanwhile people pop shots at you and you end up taking a death in this motherfucker. So with the Killzone 3 system, there was always that issue of getting stuck on a wall like a third-person shooter. With this sliding scale of standing and going prone, you can actually avoid that element. But again, that's something that needs a lot of test. It might not work as I envisioned, but it's certainly something that adds another level of physics to the game. Now that element could also affect drop shotting. You know, I'm pretty indifferent towards drop shotting. I use it occasionally. I'm average at it. You know, I'm nothing to write home to mama about and shit like that. But I get the benefits and I get the complaints of drop shotting. The fact is, you can fall to the floor while maintaining a level of aim is a bit unbelievable. It's possible, but it's not 100% accurate with how video games are able to portray that motion and the speed of the motion. So depending on this sliding scale of height that I would introduce, that could at least provide some realism to the tactic of drop shotting. Because right now, you drop to the floor immediately with no penalty to aiming or health or anything. At least with a dolphin dive, there's a delay in the aiming and shooting mechanic until you crash land. For drop shotting, that seems like a feasible change, because let's be honest, you're not going to be able to fall to the floor immediately and maintain perfect aim. You know, drop to a knee maybe, but drop all the way to the floor flat on your stomach? Yeah, that's not fucking happening. You know, I think the dolphin dive level of aiming and shooting delay is a reasonable change to the mechanic if the adjustable height thing doesn't work. But right now, the fact that you could drop to the floor immediately while still aiming is a little bit on the unrealistic side, and let's be honest, it is a little bit unfair to the person that you're actually shooting against. The final tiny physics change I would like to make to shooting elements is the jumping factor. When you jump out of a window or off a ledge or something like that, you can continue to aim and shoot your gun, which I have no problem with because it certainly is possible and plausible. But what the game is missing is impact recoil. When you hit the floor, there is very little in the way of impacting your aim or shot. So I would want to add some kind of impact recoil. When someone actually hits the floor, you physically see it. You know, when you see it, you take a little bit of damage, your gun drops a little bit, but not as much as it should. I mean, you could do whatever the fuck you want in the air, but as soon as you hit the ground, I want some effect to take place. Whether your gun drops to the floor, whether it shoots up to the sky, whether the shooting mechanic slows down because you actually have to be able to recover your composure, some shit like that. But the fact is, as soon as you jump and you land, there really is no major penalty. I want to have at least some kind of impact recoil to affect people just jumping out of windows and shooting as normal all the way to the floor, and once they hit the floor, then they're still able to maintain their shot. That should at least have a slight change. Not a major change, but a slight change. Anyways, this was a lot of information from gun mechanics, and yes, I had to rush through this motherfucker because I want to keep it short. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit, and I'll see you guys in the next BluePrint video.